had thought and is full of everyday practical value. It is really a matter of knowing God, something women have always done and still do today. In time, this fuller and indeed better definition would help me see that theology is far more than a professional affair or an abstract system of ideas. Inadvertently, my professor had exposed a problem of enormous seriousness for all Christian women, myself included. Once the initial sting subsided, I might have forgotten the whole episode except for two further developments which stamped my professor's words indelibly on my mind. The first was my discovery that whether or not we realize it, all Christian women are theologians. Since theology is really about knowing God, then anyone who believes anything about God is a theologian of sorts. The second was a growing realization that not only am I a theologian, but it truly does matter whether I'm a good one. This became painfully clear to me as I began to suffer the consequences of my own neglect of theology, not in the seminary classroom, but in my personal life. When he linked women and theology, my professor started me on a personal journey that would lead me to discover my heritage as a Christian woman, a heritage of which a whole generation of evangelical women seems unaware, and which I believe we desperately need to reclaim. Through a great deal of research, I discovered that the Bible, not to mention church history, records the stories of countless women whose theology led them to make significant contributions at home, in the community, and in the church. Properly defined, the idea of a woman theologian is not as revolutionary as it sounds. Indeed, I found that theology lies at the very heart of what it means to be a woman, a discovery that marked a major turning point in my life. Little did I realize on that hot summer afternoon what an enormous favor my theology professor had done for me when he dropped that zinger. As one woman put it, metaphorically speaking, men still open doors for women. He had just opened one for me. This book is the result of the journey that commenced when I walked through that door. I started out in search of great women theologians and ended up discovering I needed to become one myself. It has not been an easy process, for like most worthwhile experiences, it forced me to take an honest look at myself and admit I was far more interested in what God would do for me than I was in knowing Him. I have been driven not so much by curiosity and the desire to disprove my professor's assertion, although these motivated me too, as by my need to know God better. The results have been truly eye-opening, but before I launch into what I am learning, we need to bring a serious matter into the open. A serious dilemma for women. My greatest fear in writing this book is that many women will read no further than this. I am well aware that by mentioning the word theology, I have triggered all sorts of negative reactions in some women's minds. Survey any group of Christian women on their favorite topics, and theology, if even mentioned, will rank near the bottom of the list. I could have easily avoided this problem by using less objectionable terminology, but that would be less than honest, and frankly, the women with whom I have discussed my concerns, even those who express the greatest reluctance, appreciate straight talk. They don't wish to be coddled, particularly when it comes to an issue of such gravity to them. However, they also want their valid concerns about theology to be heard. In my ministry to women, I encounter a wide spectrum of negative attitudes toward theology, from indifference to hostility. A few women here and there may find theology fascinating, may even devote a lot of time to study it, but they are exceptional and, in the opinion of some, a little peculiar. Most women cannot be bothered. As I listened to the reasons behind these negative attitudes, I hear troubling accounts of how theology has been misused in hurtful ways in women's lives. One young wife, whose husband's passion for theology left her out in the cold, pointed to the vast collection of theology books that lined his study and remarked, "These books intimidate me." Another woman lamented the loss of close friendships, casualties of a church fight over some fine point of theology. Others spoke of the arrogance of some self-described theologians and the injuries they inflict with their cavalier